Following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers, this is the TFangy coming to you with what will hopefully be a successful video review, and today we're going to be taking a look at a Transformers action figure that originally I had no plans on getting it, but when I saw him at my local Target store I figured why not add this figure to my Transformers collection, and so here is the recently released Transformers Studio Series Deluxe Class Dark of the Moon Autobot Q, or Wheeljack as he was originally known. So, back in the day in 2011 when the Dark of the Moon film was released at movie theaters, because of his appearance in the film with being designed to look like Albert Einstein and everything, even though this guy was originally supposed to be named Wheeljack, when I found out that in the actual Dark of the Moon movie that his name had been changed to Autobot Q, I figured that was enough of an excuse for me to treat him as a separate character. For those who are on the opposite side and you want this guy to be a movieverse version of Wheeljack, I apologize. I am the opposite, and where I actually I'm one of the Transformers fans where I actually enjoy his name instead of Wheeljack being Autobot Q, because it gives me an excuse to treat him as a separate character from Wheeljack. Now, I've said on some of my videos in recent years, and when I've joined live streams on some other on my friends' YouTube channels, I've said that I haven't I've lost interest in the designs that were from the live-action Transformers movies, and I don't enjoy them as much as I did. I think what made me lose interest in the live-action movie designs, especially the ones that Michael Bay designed for the Transformers, was during Transformers Age of Extinction, the appearance of the Dinobots designs and the designs of the other Transformers characters. I just lost interest in the Transformers looking that, for lack of better vocabulary, being that monstrous and freaky looking. I mean, even here with the screenshot of Q from the Dark of the Moon film, he looks like Albert Einstein if he had been turned into a robot. But at least it's a cool enough design that they were able to carry it over here into plastic form. And I do love that they painted his mustache gold just like in the film, although at a distance it actually looks like his mouth instead of his mustache. But anyways, he's pretty screen accurate. One of the reasons why I decided to get this figure is because back in 2011 when Dark of the Moon was released, I also wanted to get the deluxe class Dark of the Moon Wheeljack figure that Hasbro had wanted to release, but due to poor ratings from Dark of the Moon and the lines of action figures not selling well at retailers, the wave of Dark of the Moon Transformers action figures that the original Dark of the Moon Wheeljack figure had been released in, it ultimately got canceled by retailers, and as a result, to this day, the original Dark of the Moon Wheeljack figure is one of the rarest and most hard to find deluxe class Transformers action figures out there. And so it's when the Studio Series figure, I found it at my local Target store, I figured this would be my last chance at getting an action figure of that character and adding it to my Transformers collection. So I just figured why not get the Studio Series figure here. But again, I do love that they acknowledge that his final name in the film was different from the original name. So looking at the box, he comes in pretty standard packaging for the new Studio Series 2025 Transformers action figures. Plastic bubbles are back. You've got the name of the character on the box and the film that they appeared in, along with Takara Tomi's logo here. Over here you got the number of transformation steps from Robot and Alt Mode, and vice versa. For Dark of the Moon Q, it's 23. Picture of his Alt Mode, his Robot Mode from the movie, and of course the action figure itself. He's an Autobot, Studio Series line, and here on the back of the box you've again got product photos of the Robot Mode and the Vehicle Mode. And you've got a one-sentence bio that repeats in 5 languages. It says, as Wheeljack or Autobot Q uses his skills as a scientist to create gear for the Autobots, and then it repeats in Spanish. I believe it's also repeats in French, German, and Portuguese, or the other languages. And since his alt mode is an officially licensed car made by Mercedes-Benz, there's a reflective sticker here with the Mercedes 80s manufacturer's logo here, and even there on the box that Mercedes-Benz are the intellectual property of the Mercedes-Benz Group AG, used by Hasbro Inc. under license. So yeah, Hasbro did have to get permission from the Mercedes-Benz Motor Company or automobile company to use the alt mode for Autobot Q. So his alt mode is a miniature version of a real-life model of car. Alright, so that's really interesting. And so that's really great. It is what I was trying to say, that Hasbro was able to get that. And so after finding this guy at my local Target store or last month, he was one of two characters from Dark of the Moon that I wanted to add to my Transformers collection. The other was Mirage, a.k.a. Autobot Dino. So yeah, infamously Mirage and Wheeljack, their names were changed in the actual film. They weren't referred to as Mirage and Wheeljack, they were referred to as Dino and Q. And when I looked up to see when Dino, when his Studio Series figure had been released, it had been released way back in 2021 during the time when Transformers Kingdom was on the shelves, and because he came out 4 years ago, he's now a hard-to-find deluxe class Transformers figure, so unfortunately I missed my chance at getting Studio Series Dark of the Moon Dino and adding him to my Transformers collection to stand besides Q, but I did find a substitute action figure to fill in for that, and I'm gonna later ask you guys if you agree with me on that or not. But anyways, let's hurry up and get this guy out of the box and take a close look at him in his robot mode. Alright, and so here is Autobot Q out of his box, in robot mode. And holding his two accessory pieces. He's got the one little laser gun, and then he's got this bazooka rifle in his other hand. I believe he did use it in just one scene in the Dark of the Moon movie before he was murdered by the other Shockwave, I believe, was the one who murdered Q. But yeah, overall pretty impressive looking design. You can plug the smaller laser gun into a 3mm port here on the side of the bazooka rifle. And I believe that's weapon storage for when you transform Q into his alt mode. The bazooka rifle itself, there's a square peg on one side right here, and then there's a 5mm port on the opposite side, and right by the square peg is where there's a 3mm port that this 3mm peg on the side of the laser gun can insert it into. Out of the box it can be a little finicky, and it does feel very brittle, so I do not recommend shoving it down all the way, but there's weapon storage for the smaller laser gun. And if you wanted to, on the photo on the back of the box, it shows that despite being rectangular shaped, there's just barely enough room at the end of the bazooka rifle that you can insert it into one of Q's hands, and then the idea is he has really articulated arms, and so the idea is I'm not be able to really insert it all the way, but the idea is sort of like this, where he can hold the bazooka with both of his hands. There's even storage for it here. The reason why this square peg egg is here on this side of the handle for the bazooka is because there's a square shaped port here on the side of Wheeljack's the door to his alt mode. It's just on one side, it's not on both sides, but the idea is that you can store it on his back, which I believe he was shown having it hanging off the back of him in the movie. There's even another 3mm port down here for that the laser gun can attach to, which unfortunately is on his armor kibble on a questionable part of him. But yeah, there's that 3mm peg doubles as a flight stand, so if you wanted to see him jump up into the air to try and fight Shockwave and the other Decepticons, you can do that as well. So yeah, pretty decent amount of articulation on this guy. Head is on a ball joint, so he has the potential to he can look up and down ever so slightly. His head has the potential to spin in left and right there in 60 degrees, but due to the way the neck joint is shaped, I actually don't recommend using it. He's got ball jointed shoulders, but due to the kibble from his alt mode, out hanging here off the back of him. Even if you flip the wheel upward, the arm, it has the potential to spin 360 degrees clockwise and counterclockwise, but the vehicle mode kibble gets in the way of it. Bicep swivel, ball jointed elbows, so the lower arms have a lot of articulation. No wrist articulations, even though they could have given him wrist articulations. No waist joint due to how he transforms. Ball jointed hips and swivel joints in the thighs, but again it's impeded by the kibble that he has here hanging off of him, so the articulation on the legs is articulation on this guy is very limited. I don't know if that was purposely done to show the fact that even if you weren't aware that he's supposed to be Albert Einstein as a Transformers character. I don't know if that was done as a joke to show the fact that he's supposed to be old and he can't move his joints as far out as the younger Autobots are able to. Ew, and then the feet can go up and down that much, but but if you want the toes to move up and down more, you'd have to try and force it, which I don't recommend doing. At first glance, it looks like the heel spur is able to move on its own, but it's actually attached to the part that holds the foot together, so the heel spurs are actually immobile, and his rifle just popped out. See if I can insert it facing the other way. There, so it can go facing both ways depending on how tall you want it sticking out of his back. So yeah, lots of articulated joints, but they're limited to the kibble that he has on him. But yeah, overall, considering the fact that he's supposed to be an old man, I guess they did that to show that when you get older, your joints don't move as effectively as they did compared to when you were younger. So for some size comparisons, here is Autobot Q next to Transformers Legacy United Wheeljack, the version that was sold in the 5-pack. So here's G1 Wheeljack with Dark of the Moon Wheeljack. And yeah, this is one of many examples of how the producers on the live-action films changed the appearance of the Transformers completely differently compared to the source material. And that's why I consider this guy a separate character from Wheeljack and why I'm going to call him Autobot Q from now on. But yeah, just for a size comparison, there's the Autobot he was originally supposed to be named after in the movie. And for another size comparison, like I said, I missed my opportunity at getting the Studio Series Dark of the Moon Dino figure when it came out. And I apologize, I had a part of him mistransformed in the armed. Fresh out of the box, these panel sections are flipped up, but you're supposed to flip them down to have more movement for the hinge joints in his knees, which I forgot to mention. Apologize for that. But anyways, for a size comparison with a deluxe figure from the Movieverse line, here is Studio Series Autobot Q next to my 2007 first movie deluxe class Autobot Cliffjumper figure. This is a straight up repaint of the original 5th generation Camaro Bumblebee figure. So yeah, since I missed out on my chance at getting the official Studio Series Dark of the Moon Dino figure, and there's no announcement from Hasbro on that figure getting a re-release anytime soon, he keeps selling out on Amazon he's only available by Amazon from a scalper who's asking too much of a price. So yeah, I basically missed my chance at getting Studio Series Dark of the Moon Dino. So I decided to substitute the official Studio Series Dino figure by using 2007 Movie 1 Cliffjumper as my Dark of the Moon Dino figure. Cliffjumper surprisingly has a similar transformation to Dino, where he's mostly red and the doors of the alt mode hang off of his backpack. So yeah, I think using Cliffjumper, having him double as Dark of the Moon Dino, I think it's something that can work. Granted, he's almost twice the size of Autobot Q. I can't remember in the movie if Q and Dino were similar in size or if Dino was much larger. Unfortunately, having these two figures stand side by side, this unfortunately is a tragic example of how in 2025 this is what Hasbro considers to be an average sized deluxe class Transformer, and if you were to time travel back to the year 2007, this was considered an average sized deluxe class Transformer. So yeah, the size of deluxe class Transformers, they've shrunk by a whole inch. The average height used to be 5.5 inches tall, now it's barely 4 inches tall. Also, yeah, there is a huge size difference between these two, but yeah, as far as having an official Studio Series Dino figure, I think Cliff Jumper can be a good substitute for that. But yeah, so yeah, there are the two Autobots from Dark of the Moon standing side by side with each other, and others. Yeah, really great to see that. And so, to wrap things up and prevent myself from running out of things to say, hey, let's hurry up and get Q transformed into his alt mode, and we will wrap up the review. Alright, and so here is Studio Series Autobot Q, a.k.a. Dark of the Moon Wheeljack, transformed into his alternate mode of a Mercedes-Benz sports car. I don't know what specific model of Mercedes-Benz it's supposed to be, but the tires do roll in place well. Unfortunately, they are clipped on, so no metal pins, so that's something Transformers fans are always delighted to see. That was sarcasm. Unfortunately, the only weapon storage for his for his bazooka and his laser gun is the exact same spot I found that I showed off in his robot mode using that rectangular peg egg right there, and just having it sit off the side of the alt mode. This is the only weapon storage, so that's a little discouraging to know that like so many most of the deluxe class Transformers figures from the original Dark of the Moon line, the only weapon storage for Q has for his weapons is just attaching it to the side of his alt mode. I am glad that there's no 5mm port, so it's just, because infamously the Dark of the Moon Transformers figures, they had 5mm ports on the roofs of their alt modes, and that was weapon storage for their large laser guns. I kind of wish they would have done something so it could have been able to fit underneath here. Another shout out is that during the Dark of the Moon line, it might have actually been during Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, but they had these line of non-transforming Transformer cars. I believe they were known as RPMs or something. It started with the letter R. But Wheeljack's robot mode, head and torso, and the upper half of his legs sticking out here on the bottom, it reminds me of those old car transformers that they weren't Hot Wheels, but they were designed to interact with Hot Wheels that Hasbro designed. So yeah, Wheeljack's entire robot mode torso being underneath there, that's a call out to those Transformers cars, I think. His robot mode chest does stick out underneath the bottom of the alt mode, so in terms of a robot in disguise, the underside, no way he's a robot in disguise, but front, sides, above, and back, he is definitely a robot in disguise if you don't have his weapon attached to him. So yeah, overall, a pretty fantastic looking alt mode. And you do have to have the small laser gun upside down with the 5mm port pointing upward, because if you have it facing the other way, it will sit below the tires, so he won't be able to roll around that well. But at least they're slightly elevated, so it's not a hairline line of clearance there, which is true for most deluxe class Transformers. So for some size comparisons, here is Q, Dark of the Moon Q, next to a Legacy United Wheeljack. So G1 Wheeljack versus Dark of the Moon Wheeljack, if you prefer. So yeah, from a Lancia Stratos to a Mercedes-Benz. Wheeljack has always been a fan of European sports cars. But yeah, there's a size comparison with that. And once again, here he is next to 2007 Movie 1 Cliff Jumper, which I'm substituting as my Studio Series Dark of the Moon Dino, since I missed out on the official deluxe class figure. So yeah, it's pretty amazing to see how from 2007 to 2025 the overall size of Transformers action figures has been reduced. So yeah, it's no comparison. This figure is a much larger figure than this one. But yeah, as far as they go, it's pretty nice seeing them standing side by side with each other here. So yeah, I'm gonna partner them up, since they were the two Autobots from Dark of the Moon that the only ones I have in my Transformers collection. Whether or not I'll have them stand and interact with my Generation 1 Transformers characters is yet to be seen. But yeah, the alt modes are pretty much spot-on versions of a Camaro and a Mercedes. And that's what the movie design the live-action movies were originally going for was having Transformers with monstrous-looking robot modes transforming into realistic cars and vehicles. So, in that regard, they did achieve that goal. Also, yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say. For the alt mode, one of the things that Q has going for him are paint detailings. The Mercedes-Benz logo, it's kind of hard for my camera to show it off up close, but the Mercedes-Benz logo is outlined in silver. The headlights are painted silver. The grill, the inside of the grill is painted black, and then the outline of it is painted silver, so that's pretty nice paint job you don't see on Transformers action figures too often these days. The windows are clear plastic. They're translucent black, or smoky, or very dark smoky gray, if you prefer. The rims of the tires are painted silver, so that's a nice touch there. The tail lights, my camera is not, the glare from my lamp isn't, and my camera is not making an optical illusion. The tail lights are painted red, but then they have silver stripes inside of them, so they aren't just tail lights. There's caution lights and signal lights on the tail section as well, so that's really nice. The manufacturing brand for the model of Mercedes-Benz, and it's not only sculpted on the surface, but it's also painted silver as well over there on the corner of the trunk. And of course the Mercedes logo is also painted silver, with the brim of the trunk being painted silver as well. The exhaust pipes aren't painted at all. They're just unpainted blue. Sculpted detailing on there. Air sticking out above the ankles of the robot mode. Oh, and if I'm reading it correctly, this model of Mercedes-Benz is known as an E550 Aero, so it's nice that they actually took the design to not only make it so tiny, but painted it silver as well. So, in terms of being a robot in disguise, Autobot Q does manage to pull it off, but he manages to successfully pull it off even more when his weapons are removed from him. So, just a minor nitpick from me with lack of weapon storage for him. That's one callback to the original Dark of the Moon line that I think Hasbro and Takara could have avoided with this guy. So yeah, like I said at the start of the review, I don't enjoy the Michael Bay or Movieverse designs for the Transformers characters as much as I used to. But I'm glad, but I don't regret making an exception here for Dark of the Moon Q. I wanted to get his original Dark of the Moon action figure back in 2011, but missed out on it due to how rare it was and how difficult it was to obtain at the time. I'm really grateful that Hasbro and Takara did finally decide to release an action figure of him in the Studio Series line. Not happy that they decided to wait 4 years after releasing Dino in the Studio Series line to release Q. But overall, he's a pretty fantastic looking Transformers action figure. One thing I don't like is that my camera is making him out to be a much brighter shade of blue than he actually is. He's actually a much deeper blue than my camera is making him out to be. My camera is making it look like the shade of blue that he's made of is almost the brighter shaded blue plastic that you might see on Ultra Magnus, for example, but it's actually closer to the shade of blue that's oftentimes used on Optimus Prime's legs. So yeah, I'm just not happy that my camera's making it much brighter than it actually is in hand. So I've run out of things to say, so to prevent myself from babbling, I will ask the proverbial question I do at the end of my reviews. Do I recommend getting the Transformers Studio Series Dark of the Moon Autobot Q, a.k.a. Dark of the Moon Wheeljack, and adding him to your Transformers collection? Absolutely. You cannot go wrong having this figure in your Transformers collection. I enjoy his design being modeled after the real-life human scientist Albert Einstein, who some people have argued that Albert Einstein was the smartest man who ever lived due to his scientific achievements, such as publishing his theory of relativity and how gravity works with bending in through space. And like I said, especially if you did manage to get the Studio Series Dark of the Moon Autobot Dino figure. I do recommend getting Q because they're a pretty great dynamic duo from the Dark of the Moon film. Since I missed out on Dino, I'm going to use my Cliffjumper figure here as a fill-in for Dark of the Moon Dino. You know, I think it works to the similar transformations. And again, here he is next to also Wheeljack as well. Also, since it's Memorial Day, here are the colors of the American flag, red, white, and blue, in celebration of Memorial Day. I originally wanted to do a Memorial Day video, but I didn't plan on Q's video review being one that it would have patriotic colored Transformers inside it, so I didn't realize that until right now. But yeah, here's a shout out to Memorial Day with having patriotic Autobots standing side by side with each other. So thank you guys all so much for watching, and happy Memorial Day to you guys. This has been the TFA and Geek, and until next time, you guys, please remember to stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you to all my friends and subscribers for your continued support. And until next time, you guys, I highly recommend getting Studio Series Dark of the Moon Autobot Q. And until next time, transform and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.